And now time to start talking about our environment and all of those basics that we should know concerning the environment. First of all, how did we get to where we are today? What are the ramifications of the realities that we are dealing with as a country and as a population? And what could be done and by whom? Those are some of the issues that we will try to find answers to in the course of our discussion on the program this morning. I'm joined by three gentlemen. I'm going to begin from my far left. Dr. Gideon Emilwe is Associate Professor in the Department of Forestry and Wildlife at the University of Benin. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
We appreciate it. Also, next to him is Dr. Godwin Uyojo. He's Executive Director, Environmental Rights Action and Friends of the Earth, Nigeria. Thank you for coming on the program as well. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. And next is Innocent Edemaria, is Program Manager, Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, and each here in Benin. Also, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning.
Great. Let me begin with you, Dr. Ojo. Just recently, NIMET, that's Nigeria Meteorological Agency, saying that particularly in the north, we are losing no less than 350,000 hectares of land to desertification. For so many people, this sounds strange, and they can't even put a finger on what it means or what the implications are. You want to walk us through that quickly?
Well, NIMET went further to say that the situation will worsen. The whole essence, the whole issue we should take home is that climate change is real and is beginning to take its effect. There is increase in global temperature.
Okay.
And that simply means there's global warming. And that global warming is caused by rising carbon emissions that is released into the atmosphere on a global scale, not just Nigeria alone. So that in itself means that there will be extreme weather conditions. In some areas, too much rain, and in other areas, drought and desertification. In Borno, Jigawa, Sokoto, and the upper limits of Nigeria. So the whole issue is that of climate change, and Nigeria should wake up to listen to the forecast of NIMET.
But that's quite ironic. I mean, come to think of it, when you hear people like President Donald Trump, who ordinarily one would think is very informed and should have a handle on these issues, come up to say, well, climate change is not what people say it is. In fact, he pulled his country out of the Paris deal, for example. That in itself is a whole lot of message. How do we begin to reevaluate these realities and come to the conclusion that climate change is real, especially when you look at the fact that countries from the so-called global south that we used to know as the third world countries don't seem to be doing enough to mitigate the effect of climate change?
In the Paris Accord, there is what we call the historical responsibility.
Right.
Those who are much more responsible for the causes of climate change. America, the developed countries, are countries that should do much more. But in spite of that, everyone, every country should have a stake. And that is why Nigeria has pledged to reduce its carbon emissions by 20% unconditionally. And if they get the needed finance from the Green Climate Fund and all that, then they'll be able to do more by reducing emissions by 45%, giving the finance. Well, I think Trump out of the equation is significant, but it does not derail the global push for a shift from fossil fuel dependence to renewable energy. The new revolution is energy transition, moving from fossil fuel, oil and gas, nuclear, coal, moving away from all this dirty energy. We are moving towards renewable energy, and that is the message. Even though Trump and the rest is denying climate change, they are responding more than Nigeria to the cushioning, to the reduction of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. So it's an economic opportunity if you want to look at it that way. The environment case is real, and we need to protect our environment, but there's also an economic component that will benefit Nigeria. Trump is taking advantage of that.
Let's talk about flooding, for example. Nigerians across strata can relate to flooding in this country, no matter your societal status. What's your assessment of the devastation that has been caused by flooding, particularly beginning from 2012, where we had flood sweep away human beings and human property in several states in this country.
Yes, you will recall that in 2012, there was massive devastation caused by flood across the country. Across the states in Nigeria.
Right.
Several states within the Niger Delta, even in Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, rivers. Then a part of Kogi, we recall that some, those that were traveling from this way to Abuja couldn't travel at the time. But it was really, the devastation was really massive. You see, people were sacked from their respective homes. You see, people's livelihood were affected, such that people had to be relocated temporarily to other locations, so that until the flood descended. So the devastation was, even up to now, there are people who are still unable to recover from the effect, because government most times is often not prepared for such incidences. For example, there are some states within the South Delta, for example. If you go to in terms of preparedness, you see some states are more prepared than others. Delta, for instance, if you go to the Delta State Emergency Management Agency, you see how that agency is relatively equipped compared to that of Edo. So even beyond, we are lucky that from 2012 up to now, last year we had small flooding in Edo, part of Eastern Southeast, even in Ologbo, but the scale is not comparable to that of 2012. So what is the potential for government to act on issues of flooding? Now, we even did a report at that time, at ANIT, we did a report on the flooding situation at that time and made some recommendations on how emergency management agencies should be equipped to prepare for the future. In spite of those kind of reports and all that, you see that if the same situation happened again, we'll still be caught unaware, and it's quite unfortunate.
People talk about funding a lot when it comes to flood control. What are some specific measures, the 1, 2, 3 measures that must be put in place to check flood? I mean, most times we are reactive. The damage would have been done before we seem to get the message. Can't we reverse the trend?
Yes. First, flood happens everywhere across the world, not only in Nigeria's situation. But the scale differs. And it also depends on the type of flooding that appears in your area. For example, human activities around us tends to create more problem for us, where we do a lot of, very soon we'll enter corn season. You see a lot of people selling corn everywhere and dumping the waste product on the gutter. But apart from that, even in an organized environment, flooding can happen. Now, the relevant agencies must be prepared to respond adequately to the situation. First, the flood management agency should be, the emergency management agency should be well equipped to quickly respond to such situation. And in areas where floods are being expected, you see there are what they call shelters. The shelters are constructed somewhere to take care of people when they are displaced from their natural environment. In our own part of it, you see, such things are hardly done. So you equip the emergency management agency, then you educate the people on what to do. When there are signs from NEMAT and other government agencies, then you speak to the people on steps to take. For example, evacuation. Once the warnings have come that by so time, flood may overrun XYZ state. You see, you now talk to them, prepare to evacuate them. But you have to provide alternative for them to go. Okay. So in this part of the world, there are hardly alternatives. You see now, in terms of buildings are collapsing everywhere, in Lagos and all that. You see government will come and say, please evacuate this building. And these are hopeless people without alternatives. So government should look at evaluate the situation, provide alternatives, provide enough warning signals to citizens and people who live in flood-prone area, and also equip their agency who are directly in charge of response to such situations.
Let me come to you now, Dr. Emelue. You have an impressive background in forestry and wildlife. You spent a chunk of your years teaching issues about forestry and wildlife. And then we hear plant trees, and plant more trees. Will that be enough to mitigate all of these issues?
Well, yes, it is said that every drop of water will surely make an ocean. At the micro level, it can work.
Okay.
At the macro level, it will still work. We've been talking about this issue of climate change and the rest, and the fact is that the way God has made the world, there's supposed to be a synergy. There's supposed to be a kind of a relationship between one and the other. You will notice that even the forest itself, the trees have relationship to this issue of flooding somehow. You also notice that the trees also have a role to also play in cushioning the temperature. So, but I want to say that the human activities have actually disorganized the sequence. And if you look at the world, it's like a factory. The forest is like a natural factory that helps to put things in order. Let us look back to Nigeria. If you look at this far north you are talking about, that where you have Sahel, Savannah, Sudan, Savannah, Guinea, Savannah, and the rest. As you move towards the north, you notice that naturally the trees are fewer. And now, as we are talking, the desert is already moving. For me, I went to Afuze, and what I saw around Agadibode and Afuze is disheartening. You will see fire going on. So you ask me, is it possible that trees can do? Of course, the trees can. Because once trees are planted in a belt, they form a massive synergy that can help to hold on to the wind, reactivate the particular environment. But let's get to what actually is going on. In a country, there is a percentage, at least not less than, if I'm right, around 25% or 30% should be covered by the forest. But unfortunately for us, we are losing our forest reserve. Our forest reserve are turned out to become cassava reserve or whatever you may want to call it. It's no longer forest reserve. And forest reserve is not the same thing as palm plantation. The palm plantations, the rubber plantations, they are not as efficient as a forest reserve, because in a forest reserve, when they are constituted, there are certain natural things that are there. The river is there, all kinds of things. The watershed is there, and they help to filter and take care of the environment. But what we have noticed now, it's not even deforestation, the deforestation that is even the issue now. The greatest evil going on is the reservation. I don't know whether you know the difference between the reservation
that's why we brought you here, so you can walk us through both of them.
The difference is this. Generally, deforestation is, forest going through activities, burning, slash and burn, and all that, construction of highway, and it goes on. Whether it is a farmland area, the number of trees is going down, you are talking about deforestation. But when you are talking about the reservation, what it means is that areas that have been designated, delineated, that have been put to have forests, have now been converted to another use altogether. And that is what is going on. Actually, you have natural forests, you have artificial forests. Unfortunately for us, what we do is to look at the production. The forest is not only to provide timber, it's not only to provide the tangible materials. There are other social benefits that is to come from the forest.
And some of them may not be tangible.
In most times, yes, in most times we are carried away. The most people in that farm that you have around the forest, those that are farming outside, there is a synergy between that farm. All those bees that are pollinating in the farm, they come from that forest. And so there is a sequence. If I'm trying to be particular, in this Edo State where we are, operating forest reserve have been de-reserved. Let me give you an example. Olobo forest reserve have been de-reserved. There is a palm plantation. I'm not saying there's anything wrong in having palms, but it's still not efficient, because the animals, the wild animals that are supposed to be there, of course, they can never be at peace in such an arrangement in that way. So as we are talking, the forest is reducing, and it's going to be very difficult for any government to think that they can still establish a forest reserve. It's going to be very difficult, because every human being with the population that is coming up, you are holding on to the little piece of land that they have. I think the government have a part to play And I also believe that the communities, we should revert back to community participation. That is where we should be going to.
So as it stands today, overall, we can't say that forests are pristine. That's the point. Pristine in the sense that they are not what they should be naturally,
They are
what they
not,
were
of course,
many years ago.
they are no longer the way they should be.
And that has serious implications, right?
Of course, they have very serious implications. So that is why you can see, the forests serve as a cushion in order to stop what is coming up from the up north. The up north, now what I mean is the desert area.
Right.
And so if that cushion is not, they keep coming. It will keep coming, and you notice that the place is drier. It will keep getting dry, and when the trees are gone, the grass takes over, and you see the people up north bringing their cow and coming this way in the name of desert encroachment.
As a small boy in elementary school, I used to hear this term, forest guard.
Yes.
What's supposed to be their role, for example?
The forest guard is the forest police. Let's use is the forest police. Only that, initially in history, police, they were involved in manning almost everything in Nigeria, right from fire brigade, right from forest brigade, and the rest. But along the line, we felt that there should be specialization. And so the forest guard were now put in to make sure that they monitor the boundaries. They have to ensure that when concession is given to a forest compartment, they have to ensure that the person who is giving that license only goes to take a produce that is licensed for. That is the essence of the forest guard.
Okay, let me come to you again, Dr. Ojo. When NIMEX, as an agency, gives warnings, who exactly are they talking to? Is it the government or members of the public?
I think first and foremost they are talking to institutions that are responsible to ensure that early warning signals, any warning systems are put in place, so that we respond. But in generality, it's talking to all Nigerians, everyone. So we all have a stake in this issue, like the flooding that my colleague here has already mentioned. It is clear that we need to have an orientation policy, see how we can address those issues. If we are not able to address them, we should prepare for them. What we see now is that it looks as if the institutions are ready to be counting casualties when the flooding starts, instead of putting in place preventive measures. NIMEX has done its part, but going to the Iroko tree or whatever to signal a bell and say something bad will happen, it's not enough. You need to put in place preventive measures, and those measures are not there.
You talked about preventive measures, but before that, you also mentioned orientation policy. Let's talk about the National Strategic Action Plan, something also known as the Droughts and Desertification Policy and Drought Preparedness Plan. Some persons say this just usually would end up as an academic exercise or a political statement. But we have also seen in some other, as it were, forward-looking countries where such policies have made a difference in ways that are measurable and significant. Why aren't we having the same kind of reality in our case? I'm asking you, Dr. Ojo.
I think the Green Wall initiative by the federal government and so many other policies put in place, they are excellent, they are good. But when it comes to implementation, that is where Nigeria falters. And we must mention the issue of corruption as part of the problem. So essentially, we need to put all hands on deck and ensure that there's proper orientation of the people. There's no transparency in these issues. Those that are targeted, even the 11 frontline states that are faced with desertification, they are not brought along to be part of the implementation. This is why we are rooting for community forest management in ways that put conservation, forest protection in the hands of local communities, as it were before the colonial times. So this is crucial. The forests, the timber, the non-timber forest products generates economic benefit. But beyond that, there's what we call the intangible benefits, the carbon sequestration, the habitat. These things we need to protect. So when you look at desertification, it simply means, with the way it's going on in the north, with the impact, it simply means government policy failure. And that is how we can look at it.
But is it possible to reverse such failure?
It is possible. I will not say lack of money is the problem, because some money has been voted. Probably we need to do budget tracking and see how the resources were spent. Nigeria can do well to prevent desertification in the north. If you don't do that, very soon, as the desert is encroaching from the north, and then you see the land subsidence in the south and flooding coming out from the south, we are going to meet somewhere in the middle belt, and that will be very disastrous for the country.
He just talked about funding, for example, how that we might need to start doing budget tracking. We understand, for example, too, that there are people who are actively involved in environments. Some of them say they are environmental activists. We know of how that there are lines or channels of funding that also come into fighting off environmental threats and so on and so forth. But he has also alluded to the fact that there doesn't seem to be much of transparency in the way these funds are channeled and how they are eventually spent, so on and so forth. What's your assessment of that?
Well, you know that government always have something to hide. That's a basic fact, especially in Nigeria. Year in, year out, there are different sources of funding to take care of the environment. The Ministry of Environment, for instance, and other agencies who have one role to play in protecting our environment, they have budgets. Even the ecological fund that goes to states to take care of serious environmental issues, like gullies and other areas, are there. Year in, year out, monies are allocated and spent, purportedly spent. But you see that rather than the problem coming down, you see that we begin to see more. Or perhaps Nigerians, development workers, Nigerians, communities need to shine their eye on how the money is being spent. Now, a whole lot of things are going on. Even the government, by way of policy direction, have even made it easier to do a bit of tracking. With the signing on to the Open Government Partnership, where government has made considerable information around the budget public, it becomes easy for development workers and even people in the communities to follow up with budget. It's just that maybe a lot of persons are not aware of the issue. If you go to the website of the Budget Office of the Federation and Federal Ministry of Finance, you see a citizen portal that has been created where all information on the budgets have been made available. So it's for us to assess such information and follow up with the provisions that are there. But a lot of people are not doing it and all that. So if you have more people getting involved in determining or in tracking government expenditure, I think and I'm convinced that the diversion, the rate of diversion will increase. But where the interest is low and no follow-up, nothing like that, you see, then it creates room for opportunity or for people to steal more. So I encourage Nigerians. Not all Nigerians can go to access website and all that. But a lot of people these days have phones that they used to do Facebook, this, that. If they channel that effort to tracking government activities, government expenditure and all that, I think we will get more results.
All of these things you have talked about now, they will appear to reflect the fact that a lot of us are not informed about these issues, hence the seemingly lack of interest in environment-specific issues, don't you think?
Yes. You know, the business of government, of governance, is not supposed to be an issue for those that have been elected or those that have been appointed. It's supposed to be everybody's business. Anyway, it's just the way government runs in this part of the world. Otherwise, a government that is inclusive, a government that is participatory, ought to carry people along from the beginning, such that there is this collective ownership. And once that is there from the beginning, you see that everybody understands what. But now in this part of the world, and in Nigeria in particular, you see government draw budgets and people are hardly even aware of when budget is being prepared. Not to talk of, we only hear that the president or the state governor will be presenting budget at the National Assembly or at the state assembly. The next thing, the budget has been signed. Then the next thing, the next year, some people who are not keen at following up The next year, they say the president or the government is also presenting the next year. So the government need to involve the people more. This inclusivity and participation is key. And that is the future. So people will be more interested, and will participate more when the government is more. And apart from that, you see, the way things are going in this part of the world, it's really not ideal. People don't know what the government is doing. There's this issue of trust.
You already mentioned budget, for example. I'm just curious now. When you look at our budget in the last couple of years, when you see the way allocations are made, I've spoken with those who are in the academia. They always complain about how that next to nothing is allocated or made available for education. UNESCO strongly recommends a minimum of 26%, but Nigeria has never done up to 10%, at least in the last 10 or 12 years. Having said that, does our budgetary position reflect priority as far as the environment is concerned?
No. That we are far from it. Government has its priority. For instance, if you are elected as a president or as a governor or whoever, you have a priority. The government says that they want to fight corruption, they want to build infrastructure and the issue of security. So in line with those priorities, the government tends to make allocation in line with those priorities. So it is left for those people who are doing work around the environment and other areas to make a case for the area they are working on and all that. So if you make a proper case, you see, government will consider it.
Let me talk to Dr. Melwe. I'm going to come back to you in a bit. One time, sometime in 2017, you and I drove in your car, and you showed me to a gully here around Ugbo.
Yes.
And that was the first time I would even know there was a gully like that there. It was quite a shock for me, and I'm almost too sure it will be same for everybody who gets to find out for the first time. But then again, that's not the only part of this country, or even the only part of Benin where you have gully problem. That's also an offshoot of the environmental issues we've been discussing the whole time, isn't it?
Yes, it's an emerging problem. What you saw that day, from what I found out, it came from borrowed pit, what we regard as borrowed pit. We are having pockets of them around Edo State, and it looks very harmless when it starts. The community seem to benefit from it. They pay the money, but because of the way they handle it, it becomes a disaster, a tsunami that is waiting for those communities. And what you saw that day, what I showed you, is as a result of it. So if you go around Edo State, and perhaps maybe I'm sure of Edo State, I don't know much about other states, you would notice that they keep mining. I use the word, they mine laterites from that place. And they don't, if you go to bypass, you will see a lot of such things. And that is a problem, because as that action is on, they are loosening the soil, and in most cases they are at the slope. There is a natural cause for water, whether we like it or not. So by the time you now excavate, you notice that the water will now start eating through the edge. Like if you go to Okwaye, you will see what I'm talking about.
That's the Benin Asaba Road, right?
Yes. So you see the problem coming up. All those trees that are going to be at the side, at each point they'll be falling inside. They'll be going in, they'll be going. I think the problem is that the government is too reactive in most of the problems. We wait, it's like waiting for fire to burn before you bring the fire brigade. If we spend our energy to ensure that fire will not come and then minimize it, I think the quenching of fire will reduce in a little bit. Because what we are talking, I think the Ministry of Environment some time ago in Edo State decided to close down their pits. Perhaps it has to do with this, so I don't know whether it's revenue or whatever, but I know that they stopped them at a point, because some of those borrow pits were at the back of people's houses, and they don't know in the next 50 years what that problem is going to be. And they don't even put any plan in place on how to reclaim such a land. Because in some other countries, if you must do that, you must bring a plan on which you have to bring back what used to be there. There used to be trees, there used to be animal. You must put those plans out. Let me just bear my heart out. If you look at most part of our country, a company will go acquire about 5 mile by 5 mile or 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer. In some other countries in Africa, not even outside Africa, they are going to ask you, what is the plan that you have? Where is your EIA? Most EIAs, I'm sorry, I'm going to spill the beans. Most EIAs are written from the office. Only very few, they go out to do the EIA, because EIA should be able to tell you that, this is what is going to happen to the environment. What are the parameters that are there? What are the indices? If you do this thing, what is going to happen to the community? I know of a very big factory along bypass. I may not want to call the name. If you see the emission that is coming out from that place, I can assure you that that community, there is already a problem. And the EIA is supposed to point out, if you must use that particular land, the EIA must provide what they call mitigation measure. What are the strategies that you will use to bring down the adverse effect of what is going to happen?
By what you're saying, are you suggesting by any means that we should double check environmental impact assessment? Because I guess that's what you refer to when you talk about EIA.
Yes, that is what is going. I'm talking.
So a number of them that we have in this country right now are questionable.
They are very questionable because even after you have done an EIA, to know whether that project should go on, there is what they call auditing of EIA. You do post-mortem. What I mean by post-mortem is that you have asked the company to start. You're expecting that the mitigation measures will be used. Right. Then later on, you now bring an auditor, environmental auditor, that you look at those indices again, look at air quality, look at all those things. Are these things doing well? Is it compatible with the communities there? That we are not doing. And so we don't really, the way we are going, it's not only flood that is pursuing us. So many things are pursuing us.
Okay, before we get to a few other things that are pursuing us in your words, Dr. Joe, this whole thing that Dr. Emery has talked about extensively, it appears to be a rigorous process, and we do not seem to have the systems to cater to all of this, do we?
I think let us narrow the issues down and look at the issue of flooding, for example. The rains are about to start in earnest.
Right.
You can see it already. When it rained a few days ago, you saw the impact in Benin City. And this is a recurring decimal that the streets are flooded. So let's return back to the basics and put in place orientation program for our people, for the whole of Nigeria. What will make a man or a woman kill a rat, sweep your house, and empty it into the street, into the gutters? That is a huge problem. It looks small, but is highly significant. It goes on to clog the drainage system. It goes on to cause a lot of harm. The health issues are there. You heard of the child that fell into the drainage, and I don't know whether the child was found or not till now. So these are serious issues. Look at the built environment. We are just conscious that we need buildings, but you cannot build on floodplains. Look at the floodplains all over Benin City. They are all built up. Look at the way development is carried out. The environmental impact assessment is not followed, as Professor has alluded to. In fact, some projects start, and they even commission the company to commence work before an EIA is done. And that is the case of Okomo.
That's against a lot of practice.
Yes, of course. So there are so many instances where companies cut corners to circumvent the laws that are in place. And we need to be up and doing the so-called the forest that is being de-reserved. What is it for? For palm oil expansion in the name of revenue to create jobs. But you are at the same time taking away the land from people who depend on that land. So there are major issues. I was talking to Prof before we came in here. The buffer zones in Okomo Forest and all that, they are all used up. And the land is being taken. So we need to put in place institutional framework that is workable. And let us involve our people. Doing waste management for revenue generation's sake is not enough. It's a means for orientation. It's a means of guaranteeing the health of the people. It's a means of carrying them along in your policies. But we are just doing it haphazardly. People get fees, and they pay it, even though waste has not been taken from their homes. So where are we today? Why the world is moving on and separating waste, separating solid waste from chemicals. They have even moved on from separating white bottles from green bottles. In Europe, all these are going on, and we haven't started at all in Nigeria. When the Edo State government was trying to do something for Edo State, we all welcomed it, but it all turned out to a revenue-making issue, and the waste are not collected. So these are major issues.
From all of you've said now, it tends to suggest a situation of being penny wise and pound foolish. Yeah. Which means we at best just do this whole thing because we want to be able to get revenue out of the whole initiative. Yeah. But beyond that, we should be able to ensure that the safety of lives, of course, the health of, then the health of members of the public, of course, also guaranteed. That's one of the things you've said. But beyond that, as important as it is, some persons have also said that we have to take a second look at our environmental laws. Granted, you are not a lawyer, but on account of the work you do, both home and abroad, you have a general knowledge of what the environmental law says. But let's move away from law a little now and talk about issues of policies that directly affect the environment, and then talk about issues like poverty. Some persons have talked about rural poverty. That's a big factor we cannot ignore unless, of course, we want to live in denial.
Yes, livelihood.
Well, the issue of poverty is what has generated a lot of conflicts in Nigeria. Let us put it mildly to say resource conflicts.
Okay.
The Fulani herdsmen and the farmers, the farmers that are in perpetual conflict that you hear about. You might want to allude it to Boko Haram and all that, but there's also poverty, Boko Haram. There's also poverty-induced Fulani cattle herdsmen conflicts. You saw the situation in the Niger Delta, starting from Ken Saro-Wiwa, and how he tried to put in the foreburner of government policies to talk about issues pertaining to extraction and how it has impacted the people. At first, the communities were pleading, please help us, we are dying, our resources are dying, our livelihoods are being depleted on a daily basis. Government ignored them, the oil company ignored them, and then you saw the situation of militancy, where they were begging for dialogue and nothing happened. So today, whatever you do to the environment is highly, highly a factor of the level of well-being of a people. Whether it's the health of the people, the health of the environment, the resources, the marine life, all the issues relating to what we'll be discussing here, they are issues of ecosystem disturbance. The ecosystem has been disturbed. The oil spill, there are over 10,000 oil spill sites in Nigeria, and none of them has been adequately cleaned up. The gas flaring continues persistently. Look at it from different perspectives. One, we need to end gas flaring now. The other one, government is trying to make money out of gas. Either way, putting some level of fines for gas does not solve anything. It doesn't solve any problem, because for the oil company, whatever fine, whatever amount you put for fine for flaring gas is simply taken as operational cost. So there's no fine.
So the status quo remains.
The government itself ends up paying the fine that it has fined the oil company, more than the oil companies. So these are the, when you talk of policies and the way practices are done, it's highly injurious to our people. It's highly injurious to the environment. And if this thing persists, our people will continue to go into penury, especially those that depend on the environment for survival.
I'm even happy that you mentioned the Ogoni Cleanup Initiative, which a lot of people across political divides had said it was a welcome initiative. Yes. But today it will appear there's a reversal. A number of persons I've spoken with in the last couple of months would say, as it stands right now, it was no better than political statement. What has been your thoughts about that?
Well, let me give you a key element. Before contracts are awarded for cleanup, there's what is called key performance indicators.
The KPIs.
KPIs. Where are they? They are not in the public domain. So the environmental rights action groups like us have trained youths, over 100 youths, to go and monitor independently what is going on. But the KPIs are not to be found. So we check their website, the HyPrep website, the KPIs are not there. So what are they really going to do? If you've given out contract for 500 million, 700 million, and you say they should clean, you will be surprised to hear that they are not yet addressing the serious pollution. They on their own say they are going to be addressing the superficial side for now, on their own.
Okay.
So the $180 million that has been released, you are going to use it to clean superficial sites, secondary sites? This is very harmful. So you say it's a political gimmick. We cannot but agree with that. It is highly political. The communities themselves, the cleanup of the Ogoni land has divided the people. I have conducted a study, and I found out that the 10, 15 recommendations of the UNEP report that the UNEP require, the steps that needs to be taken, the federal government and HyPrep has virtually deviated from all of them. One, build a soil integrity test. Use that as capacity building for the communities in Ogoni, that they will be involved in the soil test, so that when you are carrying out this cleanup, they will be able to assess and be part of it. That is not being done. The second thing, provide emergency relief to the people. So they hire tankers. After 3 or 4 weeks, the tanker stopped. And then they started putting signs: don't swim, polluted; don't farm, polluted. If a place is polluted and you say don't swim, don't farm, where are they going to go? So the issue remains highly political. HyPrep has not lived up to its bidding, and we are waiting to see the result of the cleanup. Very soon, what you will hear is that Ogoni cleanup has commenced, and we are almost through with it. That is the next statement you are going to hear.
Before that happens, now let me come to you, Demaria, again. When you look at the Niger Delta, a lot happens around here. I mean, many of the oil companies are in the Niger Delta, which means that these oil companies, they are involved in activities that threaten the environment. Some persons have vehemently argued, they say, look, these oil companies are money-making outfits. They are capitalists in nature overall. What does that say about all of these talk we're having now about the environment?
Yes, you see, it also supports the claim that the bulk of the environmental issues in the Niger Delta are caused by the oil companies that are operating within the environment. And this is progressing or progressively going on because of the way government is also following up with the oil companies.
All right.
Dr. Ojo talked about the issue of a gas flaring now, where the government prefers to collect fines that are actually not paid, as against stopping the gas flaring and all that. There are a lot of things happening. Even some of the laws that are regulating the oil companies, the oil industry as a whole in the country, are even laws that were made many years ago, where a lot of countries, a lot of serious countries who are oil rich, have reviewed their laws. And that's why in Nigeria you see that the petroleum industry bill has been proposed, to properly regulate the industry.
All right.
And you will also observe that for over 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, that this bill has not been passed. People
they said it was too ambiguous. They had to break it down.
Yes.
Now they have the PIGB from the PIB.
Yes.
Is that not the right move in the right direction?
Because it was a move in the right direction. But even as at that, how far has the National Assembly taken it? We just have the petroleum industry governance bill that has been passed by the Senate. There are other bills that talks about the governance bill is there. The one talks about the fiscal framework, community, host community, and all that. There are other components. Without one, the governance bill cannot stand alone, to address key issues in the environment without the other bill. So those other ones are complementary. And I think that government should do more. I think that this current assembly should write their name in gold, by expediting action on the petroleum industry bill that has been with this assembly. That was what happened before the last assembly, where we made several efforts, pass the bill, do that. All those efforts came to nothing at the end of the session. And now this session is ending too. In May 29, we'll have another.
By June, the 9th assembly would have been inaugurated. Yes.
And if before this assembly winds up and nothing significant is done, it means that the 9th assembly will have to start again from the scratch to try to address the issues that have been packaged. It means that the work will go back to zero. The people will start to do advocacy again. Government will start to prepare other bills. So I think government should wake up. We expect them to do more. Now, when the vision in some of those bills are issues of environment, how the agencies, how the oil companies will be responsible for their actions in the environment, how the host communities will also contribute their quota to protecting the environment, and how the host communities will also be protected in case of environmental degradation and where their livelihoods are affected and all that. So it be, even though not a perfect document, but it will present opportunity, to reform the way these oil companies are currently working, and also it offers hope for the common man who lives within the Niger Delta, whose livelihood has been destroyed over the years, who drinks polluted water, and who moves around in a polluted environment. Sicknesses, respiratory illnesses everywhere, skin diseases everywhere. So,
but then again, I don't know how much of truth we can find in this. I've spoken with some persons off the record who say these oil companies, being non-state actors in most cases, are very powerful in several instances where they are able to make a government, especially in third world countries, almost helpless. Could that be one of the factors playing out right now?
The oil companies, they are, they have in this part of the world, money speaks. They have a lot of money, to play around with and all that. And this is one of the issues that fuels conflicts at community level. You see, where oil companies operate, some of them, instead of doing the right thing, where you operate, you have some kind of responsibility that you need to discharge to the people. Rather than doing the right thing, formalizing your engagement and doing they want to cut corners and go and meet some powerful persons, and rather than spend X, Y, Z, they will spend a little. Then those people that they have discussed with, who are not really the real people that they ought to discuss with. Now, these are issues that are fueling conflicts around. These oil companies, there are allegations everywhere that some of the provisions of the bills are not favorable, especially with the fiscal terms, issues of tax and all that. And that these
capital repatriation and so on and so forth, yes.
And these oil companies are kind of investing some resources to ensure that the bill does not go the way it is. Well, whether that is the real situation or not, I think the government needs to be decisive. Whether to reform the industry or not.
As we begin to wind down, let me just come back to you now, Dr. Emerwe. I heard people jokingly say that when those who are interested, those who are stakeholders, as far as the environment is concerned, gather at conferences and seminars, hold symposiums, and talk, most times the idea is just to drink water, deliver paper, collect extra codes, they are done. Is there truth in that?
Somehow there is truth, because as I used to say, over 50% of our problem, 50%, we have the answer, 50-60%.
Okay.
All these things we are talking, go back to history, go to internet, we are not talking what is unknown. But the greatest problem we have is the doing. We can speak all the grammar, go to Dubai, go for protocols of whatever. It is what comes, what you are going to see around you that matters. And that is where the problem is. And that's has been my worry. That with our talking, we have done so much talk. We should start doing more. That is where I come in.
Okay.
So that is where we are.
We're just going to believe that, hopefully, at least on account of the brilliant conversation I've had with you three gentlemen this morning, government and other key stakeholders will put all hands on deck and ensure that we'll begin to make progress in ways that are tangible and very measurable. I've been speaking with Dr. Gideon Emelwe. He's Associate Professor, Department of Forestry and Wildlife here at the University of Benin. Dr. Godwin Uyojo is Executive Director, Environmental Rights Action, Friends of the Earth Nigeria. Then Innocent Demaria is Program Manager for Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, Anij. All of them were on the program this morning to help make sense of this very topical discussion. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.